Have you ever craved chips, salty pretzels, olives, pickles, or something salty? Maybe to salt everything that's on your plate. This craving for salty flavors is sometimes ignored by us, and we think that maybe it's just a bad habit. I'll show you today that craving salty foods can be closely related to certain ailments. Our body signals that there is already a more serious problem, so watch until the end. For a long time, we've been told that salt is generally harmful, that it's basically the enemy of our health. Meanwhile, sodium, one of the main components of salt, is simply essential for us to maintain our health. It regulates the body's water balance, enables the transmission of nerve impulses, affects muscle function, and maintains the proper osmotic pressure of the blood. The problem isn't with the salt itself. Of course, the amount of salt we consume matters, but the quality of the salt we eat is also important. Because if we provide our bodies with refined, purified, bleached, ground, and chemically enriched table salt, it's definitely not the substance our bodies need. We should provide Himalayan salt, sea salt, Kodawa salt, unrefined and without any chemical additives. And when we lack this kind of salt, the body starts to signal it, for example, first of all, when we lack sodium. This is one of the basic electrolytes, and electrolytes can be lost, for example, when we sweat a lot. We can lose electrolytes, including sodium, through diarrhea, for example, if it occurs with certain infections or with chronic inflammatory bowel conditions, and it can also be lost through the kidneys. If the water electrolyte balance is disturbed, some people drink a lot of plain water, forgetting that electrolytes need to be replenished because otherwise we simply flush all these components out. Or people who take diuretics, for example, for hypertension, can also lose electrolytes. It's worth paying attention to that. That's the first sign you're lacking salt, meaning you start craving salty foods. Check if you're losing electrolytes. The second reason could be exhausted adrenal glands due to chronic stress. Our adrenal glands produce a hormone called aldosterone, and it's the one that tells the kidneys how much sodium to retain and how much to excrete. If the adrenal glands are exhausted, then the hormone is produced in improper amounts and sodium can escape, so the body automatically activates a defense mechanism and sends a signal that we crave sodium to replenish it. And we crave salty foods. In women, additionally, fluctuations in hormones, estrogen and progesterone can also cause an increased craving for salty foods. Yes, for example, in the second half of the menstrual cycle. And I'm sure you know that in pregnant women, the need for electrolytes also increases significantly. That's why those cravings for pickles and salty herring appear. The body sends a clear signal about what it needs right now, but there's something else that very few people realize. When the body wants salt, it simply needs that ingredient. That's when we have low stomach acid, because our body needs to produce more hydrochloric acid if there's a deficiency, to digest well so that proteins are properly digested, so that iron, vitamin B12, zinc, magnesium, and calcium are well absorbed, because they are absorbed in an acidic environment. And if there is no hydrochloric acid, problems appear such as bloating, indigestion, and heaviness in the stomach, and of course various deficiencies. Why is that? This hydrochloric acid is supposed to be produced from chloride and sodium ions, which are components of salt, and that's why, among other reasons, salt is recommended in cases of low stomach acid. 3 grains of salt under the tongue before each meal, and in general it's important to replenish salt. But remember, the quality of the salt matters. Interestingly, in Chinese medicine, the spleen and stomach are responsible for transformation and transport. That means digesting food and absorbing various nutrients, as well as creating vital energy, qi energy. If a person feels tired, very often also tired after eating a meal, this lack of energy is often interpreted by Chinese medicine as a lack of this vital energy. It says that the spleen needs to be strengthened. And here, dear ones, when it comes to the spleen, the topic is a bit broader. That's why I recorded a separate video about what the spleen doesn't like, what weakens the spleen, and what to do if you have such digestive problems or general energy issues, or if you are always cold or your body produces too much mucus. All of this requires strengthening the spleen. Watch that recording, take a look at what the spleen doesn't like, and eliminate those things, but also add to your diet what will help, strengthen, and support it. And the next pair of organs in traditional Chinese medicine, which are associated with the salty taste, are the kidneys and the urinary bladder. It's no surprise, even in our Western medicine, we say that the kidneys are responsible for water and electrolyte balance. However, what you need to pay attention to is that if a certain taste is assigned to a specific organ, like the salty taste is assigned to the kidneys, then in moderate amounts it will support that organ, but in excessive amounts it will harm it. And each of us surely knows that a lack of salt is very harmful because it's a deficiency of electrolytes. Problems with digestion, problems with stomach acid, problems with high blood pressure. Contrary to appearances, not only an excess of salt causes high blood pressure, but also a lack of salt causes high blood pressure. However, an excess of salt also has a very negative effect on the skeletal system and generally on the cardiovascular system. So everything should be in the right amounts. But if our body signals that there is a need to eat something salty, then we should analyze what I talked about today. Which organ is weakened? Where should we take care? What should we do to strengthen that particular organ? And additionally, what we should remember is that if we do consume salt, it shouldn't be in the form of chips or salty sticks as processed foods, but rather in the form of, for example, pickled vegetables, which will be much healthier for our body. And you see, our body is incredibly wise. It tells us what we should do to take care of our health. If you're also interested in what it means when you crave a sour taste, watch the previous recording. It's already on the channel. And I thank you very much for your attention. I warmly greet you all and wish you lots and lots of health. Natalia Samarets was with you.